Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to a special edition of our Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. It is actually Wednesday evening, 8 p.m., live from London, Ontario. Hopefully you're watching either on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook. We are live on Wednesday for a special reason. We have a special guest that we're waiting for him to actually click on his link to join us, but he just actually finished a podcast with Big Ben Ortmans on Twitch. They were doing some video watching and talking about some stuff coming up and just basic chit chat. And our guest is Pretty Ricky Willdy. He was part of our Indie March Madness tournament last month and provided us some very entertaining videos hyping up the tournament and his matchups, especially against Shiloh. So definitely somebody that is very entertaining and is from Ontario. We're going to catch up with him. I think he has a couple things he wants to promote, and of course, it's always nice to talk to local talent and find out how they're doing during this pandemic. But while we wait for that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. You'll also be able to get this on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you get your podcast from. And we are part of the Ontario Indie Podcasting Network and the Genres Podcasting Network over in the UK. And of course, we are sponsored by our lovely friends over at CoolBet. And just remember to stay cool and bet responsibly. They help us with the podcast and also all their shows, but of course, especially the Predictions League, where we've already done WrestleMania and Impact Rebellion, and a couple more events are coming up, so keep an eye on things as we go along. But while we wait for Pretty Ricky to show up, and he just clicked in, I'm going to bring in Steven O'Neill. We haven't seen Steven for a little bit. How are you, Steven? You're in Toronto.
Good. Yeah, it's been, I don't know, a few weeks. Had some personal stuff, and then life is getting interesting.
Yeah, understandable. So maybe we'll get your thoughts on everything with WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame, and also the releases. We didn't really get your opinions on that throughout the time, but we also do have Ricky. He just taken down his picture. Oh, there he is. We're going to bring in right now Brantford's own, the big smooch, Pretty Ricky Willdy. How are you, sir?
Doing fantastic, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. How are you guys today?
Oh, just lovely in the T-Dot.
Yeah, and London seems to be good, really good weather, but it looks like it's going to rain. So yourself in Brantford?
Oh, just fantastic. One of the most beautiful days. Just living in God's country here in Brantford, Ontario.
Yeah, I just saw you were with Big Ben Ortmans and on Twitch over there watching some videos. So, yeah, hopefully your voice is going to hold up, and it just seems to be a long day of podcasting.
I've had 6 or 7 coffees in the last 40 minutes, so I am wired and ready to roll.
Awesome. So, yeah, you were part of our Indie March Madness tournament and gave us some really good promo, especially with Shiloh. So I want to thank you for that. But how do you come up with some of your ideas?
Well, it's all led through whoever I'm facing. That's the biggest problem through the pandemic is you can't run these things off of nothing. It's all based off of what other people are. So going against Shiloh, there's a fair amount of character to draw from. You know what I mean? So I'm able to expose the flaws within her presentation and represent it in my own way. It's a little more difficult. I had a lot of fun with the March Madness promo contest, quite frankly. I a little disappointed I didn't win. Good for Scumbag Yates, but I have let the air out of his tires multiple times to try and get back at him.
Yeah, you guys came out in full force. I know up until this year we had just only 32 in the tournament, and decided to open it up to 64, taking all of Ontario, and people were putting in their ideas. And to see that aside from the Golden Horseshoe, basically, come alive and support this was really cool.
Yeah, it was one of the more entertaining things throughout the pandemic, quite frankly, as far as Ontario is concerned. So good on you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. We always want to stay in touch with everybody. Like, I can only imagine what it's been like for you guys not being able to perform and be in front of fans and seeing everything in the United States, like AEW and WWE and even UFC the other day with full capacities or even people in there. And here in Ontario, we can't.
Yeah, I was making this point on an earlier show, but the same idea that, like, you know, it doesn't hurt as much when it was the start of the pandemic and everyone was down and no one could do anything. But now you see arenas full of 20,000, 25,000 people, and it's like you're telling me we can't have 15 in a building? That seems crazy. So it's hard to get your head around, and it's hard to accept when it's the difference like that, right?
Yeah, and barely even 50 if you go outside. And
Yeah,
we're only starting to get good weather to be able to even consider maybe setting up a ring in a parking lot.
Yeah, and again, if there was like mass casualties from those situations, then obviously we wouldn't continue it. But that doesn't seem to be the trend. So I don't know, kind of. I don't know. I guess just more getting anxious, still sitting in the stable, ready to break out and let's do this thing. You know.
Yeah, understandable.
Are you have you got a COVID-19 vaccine yet?
I haven't got a vaccine yet. I've been drinking a lot of Listerine though, and it seems to be helping.
Well, it does help. It does. Are you, just like some of the celebrities out there right now, would you put out a video telling your fans to get a COVID-19 shot?
I mean, I have nothing wrong with getting the vaccine. I just feel like of all the people that you should be listening to for your medical advice, I am not the guy. I think even style points, you really shouldn't be asking me. So if there are people out there that are waiting for their local Ontario independent professional wrestling talent to give them advice on how to take care of themselves, you should really look at a different manner of putting together a healthy lifestyle. Yeah, I don't know, like take the things that you're supposed to. If you got an infection, take penicillin, take care of yourself. But good God, don't listen to me for health advice.
I'm just saying, you know how all the celebrities are putting those out right now. And we know how some wrestling fans can be a little crazed. So
yeah, that's fair. Has Vin Diesel put out a vaccine verification yet?
I haven't seen that one. I've seen a whole bunch of the other ones, though.
I haven't seen any of them. Are any of them funny? Like, do any of them flex when they're getting the vaccine so they start bleeding? Anything like that?
That's the problem. They're not funny.
Someone taking advantage of that opportunity, that platform.
Yeah, it's just so mundane and to the point, and it's like, okay, don't preach. But yeah, it's as you said, it's basically take care of yourself and take care of those around you, and do what you need to do for stuff to get going again. And I honestly don't see it, unfortunately, clearing up and getting back to normal until it's readily available, like a flu shot to people, where then we can go, okay, carry on with life. How long do you think we're gonna have to still wait?
Well, again, like everything that makes sense is we've done our part. We've sacrificed what we needed to sacrifice, and it seems like there are a lot of people opening up. So the fact that we're not, it tells me that I don't know. You know, I'm not a political organizer. I'm not a virologist well enough to tell you how it's spreading in Ontario and how fast they can get vaccines to everyone, because that does seem to be the impingement there. Once there's a vaccine for everybody who wants one, we're kind of done with all this. But well, I don't know. It's like everything else. I guess I'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
So we're going to change topics. So I know 83 Weeks is one of your favorite podcasts. What made you pick 83 Weeks? What about that one?
Eric Bischoff just delineates points like it's an argumentative essay from university. And I love the idea that they're picking apart wrestling in that manner, because when he's doing it for business, it's one thing. And I still do appreciate it, but it's a little over my head. When he's doing it for wrestling storylines and the intricacies of being able to work with different talents, I think it's the most fascinating thing in the world. Like, I'll give a cheap plug here. I'm currently reading the Nitro book by Guy Evans, and it's legitimately a textbook. Like, I've read smaller books in university. It's incredibly thorough, and just to have that kind of detail, usually when you're getting a wrestling podcast or a wrestling biography, it's so surface level and just kind of skimming on it, where 83 Weeks really delves into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, and I think Eric has said a bunch of times that that book that you're reading with Guy Evans, Nitro, is more in depth than he even knew, because guy ended up talking to people who were in the know and contact. I love listening to 83 Weeks, Grilling JR, and also What Happened When, or not What Happened When.
Something to wrestle with.
Something to wrestle with, because of those exact facts, because you're getting to dig in behind the scenes. And I nearly pissed myself the first couple episodes of 83 Weeks with Conrad and Eric trying to get to know each other, and the big argument of daylight and nighttime for the invasion of DX, and how Eric and Conrad nearly had a coronary and lost his mind over that little thing. So that kept me listening all these 100 and some odd episodes later. So yeah, really good pick on that one. You have your own podcast.
Yes, I got a podcast, the Blackballed Podcast. After being shunned from Ontario Indie Wrestling at the start of the pandemic, we had to try and make our name back and make ourselves well known. And more or less, it's just a good excuse to talk to my buddy, because I've been giving the advice now. If you want to be a pro wrestler in 2020, at least in Canada, you better get yourself a webcam and a microphone, because you are also a podcaster now.
It's the easiest thing, and we all have time. That's why we started at one show. We're up to like 3, just because what else am I doing?
Yeah. No, it's good. It's expansion. It's what we got to do in these times.
Are you surprised that some independent wrestlers don't do more podcasts and are kind of reclusive? Like, some have just fallen off the face of the earth and you haven't heard anything from them.
No, I get it. It's the same thing as myself. Like, when this started, it seemed like it would be a smaller amount of time, so you could almost just kind of wait and then re-debut. But then that's almost, that idea has come and gone, and now it's like, no, this is just what we're doing for right now. I can understand not wanting to do a podcast. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of effort, and it's a lot of time in your day, something to think about. So I can very much understand not having the effort and time to put into creating a podcast, but I very much do see it as a new form of social media. So I feel like it would almost be easier if there were shows, but to create content when there's very little going on, it's not an easy challenge. So for you guys to have 3 shows, I commend you.
Yeah, thanks. You're also part with Holden Albright, who has a few shows. You're Monsters, Mysteries, Murders, and More, I believe. It's the M4, if I'm correct, podcast. It's one of his Patreon exclusive ones where we just talk about conspiracy theories and random wacky kind of nonsense, but we like to get into it. And you were also talking just a moment ago about reinventing yourself and re-debuting, and we've seen that with hacker Scotty O'Shea as doing the anti-hero SOS. Any potential changes for yourself when things get back to normal?
I mean, I think the reality of it is I'm a different person on the other end of this pandemic. I think everybody is. So to try to go out there and do the same thing that I was doing prior to, I'm not the same person. I've grown over the 1.5, 2 years that we've been doing this. But, beyond that, it's like I'm a little more bitter. I'm not exactly as fun-loving as I was at one time, because the stakes have been raised. Things are more serious now. So not to say that I'm just a very serious person now. I don't laugh anymore. That's a bit too far, but just the reality is, to go out there and do the same things I was doing before would feel half-hearted and feel phoning it in, and that's just not something I'm willing to do. So it's something we're gonna have to see once those crowds open back up.
Understandable. Steven?
So I know you've wrestled very much exclusively in the Golden Horseshoe, correct? Like in and around.
I've ventured into America. I've also done a few tours throughout Canada. So I've hit just about every province except for PEI and Alberta. No, sorry, British Columbia. Yeah, so PEI, British Columbia are the 2 I haven't hit yet.
What's your favorite non-Ontario wrestling scene right now? Or when there was one?
Definitely my favorite place to wrestle was Old Wrestling. It was in Detroit, and there's just a fun sense to the crowd, to the roster, to the whole environment of what they're doing. In terms of things that I'm not a part of, I mean, what GCW is doing is incredible. They got rabid fans in the time of a pandemic and before, and I'm sure they will after. So that's really the place to be.
Yeah, Alberta seems to have a little bit going on here and there.
Yeah, they're popping up. I'm digging that.
And I think Maritimes has a few things. So
Maritimes got a good amount.
only a matter of time, hopefully, that things get to the point where Ontario can pop up. But in that regards, we talked to Holden Albright leading into Go Hard Pro, and he had some ideas of what the Ontario scene would look like. What do you envision for the Ontario scene when the green light is put up?
See, what's so heartbreaking about it is that we were so close to it. There was a golden age of wrestling almost dawning. It was incredible the amount of independent professional wrestling there was in the first place. But I mean, it really seemed like the balloon was just getting bigger and bigger. And for the pandemic to be the thing that stopped it is just crushing in defeat. But moving forward, once these shows open back up, the energy, the creativity, the passion that's there, just bubbling under the surface, waiting to be pushed forward. And it's going to be a few of the younger guys, I think, taking over those leadership roles and seeing how they didn't appreciate being treated and being able to push this new vision of Ontario. Because to me, it's not like the scene needs to change that much. It just needs to be seen by more people. So getting it more within the conversation of hotbeds for pro wrestling would be the goal for the whole scene.
Yeah, because we were talking with Holden, and it was more of a collaboration over competition sort of idea that he had. So while we do have so many different organizations, there were some that didn't want to work with each other, but trying to get back up, this would be a perfect opportunity. Do you see any of the places going to the wayside? You mentioned about how big it was getting in the mushrooming. Will it retract, or do you think all those ones will be able to really come back and pick up where they left off?
I would assume it's going to be a slow trickle back. So the people that are willing to go out front are going to get a bit of a lead because they're willing to be the first shows running and the only shows running at the start. But once there's money in it, once the crowds are there and that energy starts picking up, then eventually everyone will come back. I'm assuming even more people will run shows because they'll see it as advantageous. I guess it really depends on the kind of limitations that are put on people, where if the costs are out of control to be able to run a show, then people just aren't going to do it. But if there's still money to be made there, people are going to be willing to do it. And there's certainly a hunger to A, see wrestling, and B, of the amount of performers in Ontario who want to perform. So it's certainly on the table for them.
Yeah. So
would you ever consider promoting a show like your own?
I mean, I've thought about it. It seems like a pretty intense headache. I love the idea of becoming an old disgruntled pro wrestler who never quite made it and then becoming a promoter. That seems romantic in my head. But yeah, to run at least one show in Brantford, I think would be nice. I have a few local connections to some local businesses. So to be able to run it like on their property, I think would be a really fun event. But I don't know. If I never run a show, it wouldn't make me a failure as a pro wrestler as in my eyes. But maybe I should, just for the experience to know what it's like on the other side of that aisle.
Yeah, so you learned out of Crossbody Wrestling Academy?
Well, I originally started as an amateur wrestler in U of T, but I eventually went over to Battle Arts. I was there for about 3 years, did a couple of tours throughout Canada, and then wound up in Crossbody afterwards.
Okay, so yeah, you ended up with Battle Arts as well. I wasn't aware of that one because I was going to ask about the different wrestling schools here in Ontario. You have Battle Arts, Crossbody, Hard Knocks is opening up in Listowel area. What are your thoughts on the different schools that are available here in Ontario?
I mean, same thing as the amount of promotions we had. I love the fact that there's just that many wrestling schools, people able to make money and being able to train. I don't know. I love the energy around it. I've trained at pretty well every school in Ontario, CWF, HPW, Superkick. These are a couple of names. And yeah, I don't know. For the most part, I've been very happy with my training in all of them. It just kind of depends on what it is that you're looking for. If you want a bigger class, you want a smaller class, you want more intense, practicing, or if you want a more free-flowing kind of open melded idea. So you have to pick and figure out which school works best for you. But everybody who's running a school right now in Ontario has a lot to teach. So being able to pick up a little bit from everybody is always a good idea.
Yeah, and being able to rotate between the different ones that are around here, you can get a different flavor and find out what, I guess, fits your style, and you're not stuck in one sort of vision, somewhat like how they are down in Florida with the Performance Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's their vision.
Is there any promotions that are running down in the States right now that you're watching?
I mean, definitely GCW's the top of the list. It's the one right now. It's popping off. It feels like what CZW was maybe 15 years ago, what ECW was, 25 years ago, whatever. Yeah, it feels like the hot pulsating place for intense pro wrestling right now on the independent level. I'm not seeing much from PWG. I'm not seeing much from Beyond, I want to say. Limitless has been going pretty nuts. They've been doing some pretty cool stuff. But again, ultimately, the coolest thing on the independent scene for the past little bit has been Ricky Shane Page, Nick Gage, and GCW. So you can't ignore the fact that that's been the talk.
Yeah. So what else do you have going on since beyond the podcast? Anything coming up?
Oh, not too much. I do have a fist fight coming up that I'm going to be putting onto the Blackball Podcast YouTube channel. So I'm going to be live streaming that, and I'm going to be essentially physically dominating Rex Atkins live on YouTube. I just need to be making it very clear when I talk about this thing. It is not a wrestling match. I have full access to rings all across Ontario. We've talked about it. Any of those schools would love to have this there. I am not hiring a referee. I am not renting a wrestling ring because this is not a match. I am just going to beat up Rex Atkins, and I'm going to do it on his front lawn. And ultimately, I don't think Rex will even really fight back when I go to beat him up because he knows he's done wrong, and I think he feels bad about the way he's behaved. So he's going to let me kick the crap out of him.
Oh, it sounds interesting. And you said this is going to be on YouTube?
Yeah, this is going to be live on the Blackballed Podcast YouTube channel Sunday, May 16th at 4:30 in the afternoon. I had to schedule it around when Rex's kids would be there or when he's going to be at work. So I want to make sure that he's home. He's had plenty of time to get a glass of water and he's ready for this because I don't want to sneak attack him. I'm not trying to bully him. I'm just going to beat the holy hell out of him.
And you're actually podcast partners together with the Blackball.
Well, we used to be. Originally, Rex was down on his luck at the start of the pandemic, so we tried to have him on the Blackballed Podcast, and he made us remove episodes that he recorded because he was so ashamed of the things that he said. So then he went like 6 months deleting his Facebook, not talking to anyone. Eventually, he came back. We convinced him to be a third host on the show. Our ratings went up for one episode, then they plummeted because Rex was bringing down negative energy. Eventually, he started texting me and Hardbody behind each other's back, trying to turn us against each other. He started siphoning off guests and saving them for himself so that he could start his own podcast. And again, I have no problem if this young man wants to start a podcast. Everyone's doing it during the pandemic, but he's trying to steal from me and Hardbody, trying to take food off my son's plate, and I'm just not going to tolerate that anymore. So again, I think he recognizes he's messed up, and I don't think this is going to be a fist fight in the formal sense of the word. I think it's just going to be me laying a thick beat down on Rex on his front porch, maybe a little bit of blood, probably going to break an elbow, but I want him to be able to go to work tomorrow or the day after, sorry. So I'm not going to give him any black eyes. I'm not going to chip any teeth, hopefully, but you never know in the heat of passion.
And some
so you're going to beat him up right on his front lawn?
Yeah, I mean, if he won't open the door for me, I'm going to break and enter, and I'm going to pull him out of his house, and I'm going to throw him on his front lawn. But if he does answer it, maybe I'll just rock him, and we never get him off the front porch. Who's to say? Well, once fists start flying, that blood starts flowing, I could get overly excited. It's been known to happen. But the plan is just to put a good, solid beat down on him.
Well, we can make sure that we're sharing this event on our Facebook page. And hype it up for just like we are right now.
I do appreciate that.
Hopefully Rex Atkins maybe does some training. You maybe do some training. And
I've been training my butt off. I've been working real hard. I don't think it matters if Rex has been training. I think he should put Vaseline on his face so that the punches slide off and don't split his face open. I think he should learn to know what it feels like to be hit by a 2x4. Maybe wear some Kevlar for when I come over. Maybe work on his acting skills so I believe he's in more pain than he actually is. But beyond that, I don't think there's anything he can do because this isn't two gentlemen competing against each other to figure out who's a better professional fighter. This is two men, one who's been wronged and the other who needs to have a lesson taught to them physically.
Well, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Thank you.
I look forward to this interaction for sure.
Yeah, it should be very exciting. I'm pumped up for it. Ultimately, I think after this, me and Rex can get back to being good friends. hopefully he'll have me over for dinner shortly after that when he regains feeling.
Maybe that same night.
Do you think he's told his neighbors May 16th, don't worry if I'm getting my butt kicked on my front lawn, please don't call the police?
I think it's a pretty good idea. I think he would be smart if he did. Otherwise, the fine from the cops getting called for an unnecessary phone call will be placed at his doorstep. So I would recommend that he makes those phone calls and those notices to his neighbors. Again, there is the likelihood that I show up and there's just cops already waiting on the street for me, and he wants me arrested for showing up. But just like I'm describing to you, gentlemen, once you hear the story, you recognize there's really nothing else I could do. So I'm just going to explain the same story to the cops, and
maybe let's set up some lawn chairs and be ready to be security.
If we're going to have some gentlemen police officers, or some females, my apologies, but just some respectable officers who are actually going to uphold the law, then that's exactly what they should do, because this is two gentlemen with a dispute. This is not, like rival gangs causing a problem. This is exactly what you want in your city. Men handling it the way grown-ups should.
Back in the old days.
Exactly.
Put up your dukes. Time to fight. And in front
I
of
hope Rick's ready for it.
Yeah, so we will look forward to that. So we're just going to venture into some of the news and all that. Did you want to stay around for that and provide some opinion, or?
I got another 10 minutes if you guys want to hang out, and then I'll hop out of here.
Sure.
Perfect.
We're down with that. So did you end up catching any of Impact Wrestling's last
Yeah, I saw all of Rebellion. I loved it.
Yeah, so Rosemary and Havoc were in the pre-show beating Kimberly and Susan, but then Canada's own Josh Alexander.
Yes.
I think a lot of us picked him in our predictions league for him to win the X Division championship. So
I did not.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I didn't think that the company would go with him, and I hate that I'm such a snarky fan as, ooh, who's the company going to go with? But I just didn't think they were going to pick Josh. But it really seems like they've built him over the past year or 2 years. He was the tag guy and he dominated as a tag wrestler. Now he's in the X Division and he's redefining what it means to be an X Division wrestler. It's fantastic. I'm so excited to see this.
I actually didn't pick him because I actually think he's better than the X Division.
Ooh, I like that.
I actually think he should be going after the World Championship. I actually think having him in the X Division is actually a waste of his talent.
See, I totally agree, but I feel like he goes on a year-long run as the X Division champion, redefines what that division means, because it's not the same flips that it was a decade ago, because that's in the main event now. So now he redefines what it means to be an X Division champion, and then he graduates and goes to the world title, changing wrestling with him. I think he's got a really powerful position behind him.
I would, if it was any company but Impact, I might actually think that
I have faith in Scott D'Amore.
You're one person.
They have been able to turn the ship around a bit compared to what it was. I think their biggest issue with Impact Wrestling is the stench that it has attached to it due to all the mismanagement and, of course, those three famous letters, TNA, where it's considered a joke. If it was a different company that rose up from the ashes and were able to restart, maybe not so bad, and people wouldn't be down on them like they are. But yeah, Josh's got quite the story coming from Destiny and getting his contract right there in the middle of the ring from Scott D'Amore, and then with Ethan Page, and now X Division champion. So hopefully your prediction, Ricky, ends up coming to fruition. Violent by Design, another Canadian there, Diener, ended up beating Storm, Sabin, Edwards, and Willie Mack, and they introduced Big Cass. What was it?
William
Morrison.
W. Morrison.
Yeah, Morrison.
I don't know. I love seeing Big Cass. I didn't expect him, but I don't know. The match didn't blow me away. I had a lot of fun with it. It didn't blow me away, but yeah, I thought Cass being there was cool.
Yeah, there had been rumors that he was going to show up, but didn't know exactly where. But that was definitely a good spot when Eric Young is injured, and they didn't say anything about it because of all the pre-tapes beforehand. And he actually did wrestle that one last match on the Final Impact with the injury.
Yeah. Eric Young's a warrior.
Brian Myers and Matt Cardona, best friends, went at each other. Myers ended up winning Whether Cardona was actually injured or not, who knows? Because they still played it after the X went up. So I kind of not a fan of when they use that as part of the match. Your thoughts on when they do that?
I mean, it's the same thing as when Shawn Michaels got a concussion from Owen Hart in Zaguri on Raw. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to play with people's expectations of what they think is going to be real. To me, the bigger question is, whose gear did you like more? Did you like the gray Edge shout out from Brian Myers, or did you like the spiky paint splatters from Zack Ryder or Matt Cardona? Sorry.
I kind of like the shout out that Myers had. I thought he was going to win, so I think they're doing something with him with Impact that WWE did not do, and so he's not being a jobber and being able to show his talents, and so being able to do that shout out to Edge as well with the gear, really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both those guys, so I was happy that they were able to have a wrestling match against each other on a pay-per-view. Like, that's super cool. But I would say the same thing. I thought Brian Myers' Edge shoutout gear looked a lot better than the spiky cape that Matt Cardona was wearing. As much as I love capes in wrestling and I love spiky, gaudy sort of stuff like that, unsurprisingly, I like over-the-top things. But I didn't quite understand the cape. I would just like to point it out. I didn't even realize it. I'm wearing a Major Wrestling Figure Podcast t-shirt as we're talking about this. I didn't know that conversation was going to come up. But, yeah, I'm a big fan of those guys.
Yeah, they're pretty good guys and well-deserving after all the years that they've put in the business. Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering. In my case, I was surprised that they took the tag team titles from Fire and Flavor. I thought they'd keep the titles on Fire and Flavor, hoping that when July came, maybe somebody like Peyton Royce or whatever their new names are going to be, Peyton Royce and Billy Kay, would come in and be able to take them from Fire and Flavor, being built up tag teams. But now a makeshift tag team in that regards are the new Knockouts Championships. Trey Miguel, he's beating Sami Callihan in Last Man Standing. He's had an attitude change after the Rascals left and our MSK at NXT, and he stayed with Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, that was a crazy match. Those guys really beat each other up. It was pretty brutal. I did love the spot of hiding him underneath the stairs, though, and then Sammy sitting on top of it. I thought that was fantastic. The execution could have been a little bit tighter, but like, hey, who the hell am I to say that? But I thought the idea of it was really, really funny.
Yeah, and I think they're building up Trey really well. Being an individual away from the whole tag team thing and making him more serious than the Rascals were beforehand. Finju surprised me by retaining the tag team titles over the Good Brothers. I thought they'd end up having those titles back there and the whole celebration with Kenny. But
yeah, I completely agree with that. I did, however, love the big ridiculous earring that Gallows was wearing that night. I don't know if he wore it in the match or if he only wore it later on, but yeah, I did love that touch.
Yeah, that definitely stood out for sure. Deonna Purrazzo retained the Knockouts title against Tennille Dashwood. I thought it was time for a title change, but maybe they're going to set up, like I said, in July for a departed WWE person to take it off Deonna instead of the tag team title idea that I had.
I hope they keep it on Deonna for another year. She is a phenomenal talent. I could not believe the athleticism of Deonna Purrazzo during that match.
And that's
cannot speak the praises highly enough.
She came from the WWE system and really was lost, but then has made a name for herself coming over to Impact.
Isn't that crazy? Like, she was nobody in NXT, and she was so talented, and then she went to Impact, and now it's like, oh, she's a star.
And so unfortunately, though, nobody's seeing her at the same time because of ratings. And then, of course, the main event was Kenny Omega defeating Rich Swann. They used both referees, including Audrey Edwards, and she called it down the middle. But Kenny now is 4 belts, with one of them falling apart. The TNA belt was, as they were putting on him. Kind of looked a little bargain basement, unfortunately. Not surprised that happened, but you see somebody else giving up a title to Kenny to let him continue doing his belt collectorship.
I could see Ring of Honor throwing their hat in that ring. I could see New Japan.
That will piss me off.
Why you don't want Ring of Honor involved?
I love Ring of Honor. I hate Kenny Omega.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can't speak to the business. If it's doing well for Impact to have Kenny Omega there, then by all means go for it. But yeah, if it works for them, then it should work for other companies. So why not throw the IWGP title on there? Why not throw the Ring of Honor title on there? It's just how do all these promotions get their heat back? You know what I mean? Does he have to lose in every one of them in a specific pay-per-view match? Who knows? But it's at least exciting. And I would have been stunned if Rich Swann won. No offense to Rich Swann.
I would have been absolutely stunned. I don't see Rich Swann as a star. I don't see him as a world heavyweight champion. As a fan, if I want to pay money, that's not the guy I would think of as a world heavyweight champion.
Fair enough. I don't know. He's an incredible athlete. I find him pretty entertaining and engaging. It's just, I don't know. To say he's on Kenny Omega's level, Kenny's got stuff in, you know what? I was going to say Kenny's got stuff in Hot Topic, but Rich Swann had an action figure in Walmart. So what do I know?
Yeah, I didn't get fully Rich being on the same level as Kenny, and you could tell a couple spots got definitely missed, and they were trying to figure things out on the top rope. And yeah, I don't know if it's the different environment with nobody there, or the different level between the two of the experience. But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with that with Kenny. Of course, right now AEW is on, but it was recorded last Thursday. So if they're going to do anything, which they never even mentioned, Kenny going for the title really during AEW broadcasts, but they'll have to put an insert promo or something, because next week they'll be live with Blood and Guts, which is their version of War Games, and it's the Pinnacle against the Inner Circle. Inner Circle now faces in this regards, as opposed to last year when they were going to do it and they were the heels. But apparently that's the only match that's going to happen next week. How do you fill 2 hours with that?
I remember for an episode of Raw, they did a Battle Royal and an Iron Man match. So that was 2 hours, and they did just the two matches. So I'm sure between 10 guys inside of a cage, they could make that 2 hours, and I'll be pretty happy with it. I'm super excited for Blood and Guts. I do just have to run, though, guys. So I want to thank you very much for having me on here. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Enjoy the rest, and I'll be talking to you guys soon, okay?
Thank you, and I'll put up how people can get in touch with you.
I love that. I love that so much. May 16th, Sunday, 4:30 p.m., Blackballed Podcast YouTube channel. I will be beating up Rex Atkins live in front of his children, potentially. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys.
Don't forget Ricky's Pro Wrestling Tees store, and we'll be right back. I'm just going to get a drink and show our commercial, and Steven and I will go through the news. If you want a variety of wrestling news and history, look no further than the Scumbags of Wrestling family of shows. On Wednesday nights at 6 p.m., join Shawn, Steven, and Jonesy as we look for the best of the best and break it all down in a unique tournament format on Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Then Thursdays at noon, take a look back at the rich history of our great sport with This Week in History. Relive title changes, births, deaths, and some of the best events of all time. Finally, join us for the latest in wrestling news, show results, and predictions Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. The Scumbags Wrestling can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram, along with our audio versions on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're a proud part of the Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network and the Johners Podcast Network. Okay, and we are back. So that's how we can see all our shows. That's the brief highlight of everything that's going on in Johnner's Podcast Network. Over 30 shows available for there. So you can find a lot of content. We got a lot of time on our hands. If you're out in the park walking, you can always plug in some headphones and get some great entertainment from all of us, whether it's Ontario Indie or Johnner's. So, Steven, as I was saying before Ricky left, we're next Wednesday is Blood and Guts. Your thoughts on it?
I really hope that they do the War Games proud. I mean, War Games usually take about an hour. It's a solid hour, a normal WCW NWA War Games.
I think they're going to do some promos before and after just as filler.
Which is not the way to do it, but I mean, it's going to be tough for them not to just do one match because they're going to have the two cages, like the two rings with the cage. I'm assuming they're doing two rings, cages. I wonder
if the reason why they're only going to try to do one match is because of the fact that it's going to be the cage surrounding the ring, and with it being the amphitheater, they can't lift it in and out like at a WWE show.
Probably, and I wonder, is it going to surround the ring or is it on like War Games?
Well, either way, like if it's sitting on the apron, and I think it's going to have a roof on it, they're going to basically do War Games.
Yeah, so to get a cage in and out without having a roof would not be something that you could do. I would have hoped that they might have taped a match or two. You know, they could be taping it the day before, a couple days before, drop it in, just like. But I mean, an hour, that makes sense. So even if you start it by 8:45, go to 9:45, give yourself a 15-minute like layover. I mean, even because you want to make sure you get the match on the air. You don't want it to not end, so you got to give yourself a little bit of leeway. So,
and then ring entrances and stuff like that for each group. They could maybe stretch it, but yeah, I think it might be a hard episode to sit and watch, especially with commercials and all that, as opposed to it being on a pay-per-view where you're just able to focus on something like that. Who do you see coming out on top, though? Inner Circle or Pinnacle?
Here's the problem. Whatever group loses, it is not, that almost is the end of that group to me. So how do you have the Pinnacle, who you just put together, 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
Something like that, yeah.
How do you have them lose? But how do you have the babyface Inner Circle lose?
Yeah, they're putting themselves in a really bad, awkward position for that, in that regards.
So I would guess the Pinnacle is going to win because you've just put them together. But
how often do a heel team ever win a War Games? I think it happened once last year with Undisputed Era winning in
yeah,
NXT.
Because it doesn't happen. But I mean, that's the only thing that at this point would make sense. Because if you have Jericho's team, the Inner Circle, win, you're just killing off the new heel group. So I don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't understand how they're gonna do it without making either group look dumb.
Painting themselves into a corner. The other part with AEW is the fact that with Kenny now holding all the titles, he's going to have to be doing both AEW and Impact, and it looks like he's going to be on the May 15th show for Impact with it's called Under Siege, his first title defense, and that's going to be on the Impact Plus app. It's one of their specials, so he's going to defend there. And then, was it May 30th? I believe it is Double or Nothing.
Yeah, but Impact has taped all their shows until Slammiversary. Is it Slammiversary in July?
Slammiversary is in July, so they're going to be stockpiling a lot of their shows.
Everything's already taped, so it's not like he's traveling. Impact tapes like 8 or 9 weeks in a row. Like they've got like every show taped from now until Slammiversary. So, I mean, it's not a lot of traveling. I'll put money that they pre-tape their Impact Plus shows. So,
oh yeah.
So really, the next time he has to be at an Impact show is Slammiversary.
And Chad is saying, greatest champion of all, Kenny. Whoop whoop. Well, that's debatable there, Chad, but your opinion still matters.
No, it doesn't. Not when it's wrong.
Moving away from AEW, Dark Side of the Ring is going to be premiering on May 6th with a 2-hour, I believe it's a 2-hour episode of Brian Pillman, and it's come to light what the other match or the other topics are going to be throughout the season. It includes Collision in Korea, Nick Gage, The Ultimate Warrior, Grizzly Smith and Jake Roberts' family and the wackiness that goes along with that. Dynamite Kid, the steroid trials. I thought they should do that, and thankfully they are. FMW, Luna Vachon. I don't know really what's controversial with Luna, so it'll be interesting to see what they have a reason for that one. The Plane Ride from Hell, XPW, and Chris Canyon. Thoughts on those topics?
So Jim Cornette on the drive-thru, I'm listening to it right now. It's 6 episodes, then there's a break, and then there's the last 6 episodes. The creators of Dark Side of the Ring is actually on the Experience this week of Jim Cornette. So to talk about season 3, I'm interested in a lot of them. I'm not interested in Nick Gage. I'm not interested really in FMW. I'm not really interested in
XPW.
I mean, XPW actually kind of, because I just want to know why it fucked up. How it fucked up so quick. But the Collision in Korea could be interesting. I know Jim Cornette's on a whole bunch of these episodes. But
he's a historian to know a lot of them.
So I'm interested to see how they do some, because like obviously Luna Vachon, well, what's so controversial, like you said about her? So
yeah, so that will be happening on Vice TV in the States and Crave here in Canada. So we might be on time. I'm not sure what the
it's always
time is for Canada.
So I watch it. It's always the next day. Comes out the 6th. It's Wednesdays in the States. We get it Thursdays.
Okay, so we're not going to be too far behind. It's only like 24 hours, not a week,
not even
so behind. So that's good. So yeah, in Canada you can catch it on Crave, and probably somebody's going to load it up on YouTube if you don't have any of those channels. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to some of those ones and what they dig up. I can almost see the Ultimate Warrior one going back to the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior type of DVD presentation, as opposed to their sugarcoating one that they did when they made up with him.
I expect there to be some of both, because I can't see the Warriors family signing off on it without there being some understanding that it wouldn't be a complete running down of the Warrior.
So Charlotte Flair and Andrade blasted back at Dave Meltzer about comments that he made about Charlotte getting a complete makeover, and her absence was supposed to be due to having dental work completed. But as seen on Raw, she came back without missing any TV time. Thoughts on the possible change in look that Charlotte seems to have, that Dave Meltzer picked up on, and Charlotte telling Dave Meltzer basically to fuck himself?
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I said in a thing, I believe it was with Sunday Night's Main Event, about him being just a glorified fan that has conned people for years to get money out of them. And people wondered, well, why does Sunday Night's Main Event go to him every week? Well, they need some sort of content, but you take your stuff with a grain of salt. WD is planning on sometime going back to Saudi Arabia. They're going back to that dome, potentially, is what the report has. Do you like the idea of everybody flying out to Saudi Arabia and trying to get back? And hopefully they stockpile some TV, because they're going to have to be quarantined if not.
I don't see them going anytime soon. I don't think they go until things are a lot more open. I don't see that happening. I don't see them going until October at the earliest.
Do you think WWE should be bringing in fans right now, U.S. side?
I was just reading they're actually planning on starting test events in the next month or two.
Probably in those areas where the capacity can be a little bit higher or exist, as opposed to here.
Yeah, pretty much.
So fans are still giving Raw commentator Adnan Virk some trouble over some of the things he's saying, including the fact that we need to get a bigger boat as Braun Strowman starts revving up his diesel train engine to plow people down. And I don't understand the correlation between a boat and him being a train. But Adnan Virk, good yet, or just there? Room to improve for sure.
It's just bad. I really hope that he gets better, but I don't really get how.
Maybe it's Mike Adamle all over again.
Yeah, and how do you not? You have your company that has all this money. How do you not go to Mauro Ranallo and just say, what will it cost you to come in to do every Monday night? You can do your boxing, your MMA, anything else, but we need you to do Mondays and X number of pay-per-views, the big four, and
especially
one or two
considering
other.
they're not touring right now. I can understand.
Exactly.
I could understand when they were touring and being really anxiety for them and whatever else was going on. But when they're in the same place all the time, that would be a good idea. I mentioned about Big Cass debuting on Impact under a new name of W. Morrissey. God only knows what that's all about, the name, or what W stands for. He replaced the injured Eric Young on the 8-man tag. He's in great shape and seems to be in a good headspace as well. To return. Is Enzo far behind?
I hope so, because Enzo's a piece of shit, but
they've been doing stuff lately together and still friends, even though they were bad-mouthing each other beforehand. Oh well. Look for more Indy Hartwell and Dexter Loomis interactions, as WWE is trademarking Index as a catchphrase lately. recently. So the star-crossed lovers of Indy Hartwell and Dexter Loomis, with the little bit of comedy that's going on with the Way, Johnny Gargano, and all them, seems to be continuing. NXT could be returning to Wednesday nights potentially, or there could be a change with AEW going to a different night. And there's talk that it would only be either Monday or Friday, and AEW would not want Mondays because of NFL football, so it'd be Fridays if AEW moves. But all these moves are due to the fact that NBC, who were rumored to be going for the hockey deal for NHL, and that's why NXT had to move from Wednesday
Well, no.
to Tuesday.
So this is their last year of having the hockey. So it's starting next year. Turner got it, and NBC doesn't. So I can see NXT actually moving back to Wednesdays.
And AEW could have to move because with Turner Sports getting the NHL deal, where do you throw that? Do they keep Wednesday nights for hockey because it's a big night for NHL to be on Wednesday nights, and you can't really do Tuesday nights for the NBA. So where does AEW go with this NXT deal? I mean the NHL deal.
It will be interesting to see where in Turner do they actually put the NHL. Because if it ends up on TNT, then yeah, AEW is moving. But it could end up on TBS. So I would guess at some point soon we'll know which Turner.
And what excuse will AEW come up with for having to move nights if that is the case? Because they had put up the fireworks saying that they got rid of NXT off of Wednesdays, even though it was a different corporate deal with USA Network altogether. But children will be children. After winning the main event on Monday's Raw, Braun Strowman now finds himself in the triple threat at WrestleMania Backlash for the title with Lashley and Drew. Do we care?
Nope.
Exactly. AJ Styles and Omos have been missing in action ever since they won the tag team titles. I wrote this before I found out that they were on the bump earlier today. I'm not sure what they have to say on the bump. I'll have to check that out when we're done. But it doesn't look like WWE's had anything for them to do, even though they got the titles given to them at WrestleMania.
I just assumed actually one of them was hurt.
Same here. But yeah, reports are saying neither were hurt, neither of them had COVID. So who knows? Bray Wyatt has also been missing in action and hasn't helped really Alexa Bliss's character build. And with them separated, I don't understand Alexa being away from Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, neither do I.
Dealing with Bray. There's a really good 24 special on the network right now featuring The Miz. It covers his career from being on MTV, being on Tough Enough, coming in second place, hosting the Divas Search for getting phone numbers, and apologizing to Vince, but Vince let him keep his job. He met his wife Maurice during that, winning the title, main eventing WrestleMania, and all the way up until today. So I've heard good things about that. Look at that one. And also A&E has been doing really good with the biographies. I guess the Piper one is somewhat more in-depth personally than the Steve Austin one was. So if you don't have A&E, they do have it on their website to be able to bring up. And, of course, there's also the greatest artifact treasure hunt that Stephanie and Triple H seem to be on, trying to find relics from WWE's past, including stuff from Mick Foley and recently Glenn Jacobs. So they have a good relationship with A&E right now. Bret Hart is still taking digs at Triple H. Says Triple H is overrated and he only got to where he is because of the family connection. Would you agree with Brett, or do you think Brett's just blowing smoke like Brett normally does and sour grapes?
I think Brett thinks it in his own mind, but I don't think it's true. I think he would be doing a lot of what he's doing now.
Yeah, I think he conquered a lot after, regardless of the relationship, because he went from being built up, did the curtain call, paid his dues, and climbed back up, and then had his relationship with Stephanie after he had already established himself with the build with China by his side and doing DX. Uh, Everything else was just a bonus, and I think he's proven himself also.
I've got to go.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Bye. So, just us. I got just a couple more notes, anyways, before we get out of here. And last night, NXT's Cameron Grimes was looking to buy a watch and finally crossed paths with Ted DiBiase. He seems to be his arch nemesis since falling into cash. And we'll see if any more things happen with Cameron Grimes and Ted DiBiase in the future. Could be some good comedy gold there. Is there? Okay, NXT also announced the Diamond Mine coming. This could be a couple of different things. People are wondering if it's DDP because of the shades of blue that are in the logos and all that. If he's going to be forming some sort of faction and leading people, which would have him away from AEW, even though he's a close friend of the family of the Nightmare family and Cody Rhodes. Or it could be Tessa Blanchard coming. Feel free to let us know in the comments what your thoughts on the Diamond Mine are. If you think that's going to be DDP or Tessa Blanchard or something else. You can always respond later on. Harvey Whippleman is running for a board of aldermen in Wellesley, Mississippi. That's where he was living when he ended up helping out The Rock at the age of 15. And he's also been recently on a episode of Young Rock, or at least recorded it. I'm not sure if I've seen him on it. I watch it every week and don't recall seeing Harvey Whippleman downtown Bruno there. Mickey James' trash bag issues extend to other talents as well. More female talents popped up and said the same thing happened to them. Stephanie and Triple H responded that they were very embarrassed over what happened. And the former head of talent relations, Mark Corona, had been fired, along with shakeups in the office of his involving talent relations. I also just saw a little while ago that Jordan, I want to say Jordan James, but Kurt Angle's TV son, he is going to be moving into John Laurinaitis' position as far as head producer for Raw and SmackDown, as Laurinaitis moves into Corona's job with talent relations. So there's a little bit of shakeups. We'll see if that helps improve anything that we're seeing, as Raw seems to be the show that you least want to see of any of the WWE product. SmackDown this week has Roman Reigns against Daniel Bryan, where Daniel Bryan ends up losing. He has to leave SmackDown. Now, where he goes from there, his contract is coming up. I see him going part-time, but hey, maybe he goes down to NXT like Finn Balor did, and you can imagine some of the great matches that you could have there. Or he goes over to Raw and hopefully makes it better. The Young Bucks made fun of the issues with the trash bags and even bagged up Brandon Cutler's gear in a plastic bag, making fun of it since he's injured and not wrestling right now. And yes. One final note, which is sad, is Mongo McMichael, Four Horsemen, Super Bowl champion with the Chicago Bears. Has been announced that he's, I believe, 60 years old and has ALS. Kept a low profile lately, so it only just recently came out, and he's starting to lose the use of his limbs right now. His wife is by his side and helping him with all his personal care needs that he needs to have done. They had set up a GoFundMe, and it quickly exceeded the amount they were looking for, and they changed the number to $176,000 because 76 is his number from football. So go check out GoFundMe involving Mongo Michaels if you want to help him. I'm pretty sure, I have not checked it out lately, that they probably have even exceeded that amount that they were looking for. Wrestling community does step out and help those in need and their friends. So yeah, all the best to Mongo. Unfortunately, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, is a muscular dystrophy disease that happens and slowly takes away your life and your limbs. You end up in wheelchairs. Eventually, everybody's doing feeding for you. You lose your voice as one of the last things before everything eventually shuts down. I watched Jerry Lewis Telethon religiously as a child growing up and saw different people throughout the years with the effects of ALS. So all the best to Mongo. I'm going to guess that maybe some people are going to be shutting down that Twitter account that was making fun of Mongo and his work in WCW due to this, or, one would hope so. But yeah, all the best to Mongo as he does this. Chad says, got early birthday present and first vaccine shot. Yes, I saw that on Facebook just earlier with your shot of that. So congratulations. Hopefully other people are able to do that, stay safe, and are being out there doing what they need to do to get us through this. I'll be back in just another quick moment to talk about the stuff on the indie scene.
If you want a variety of wrestling news and history, look no further than the Scumbags of Wrestling family of shows. On Wednesday nights at 6 p.m., join Shawn, Steven, and Jonesy as we look for the best of the best and break it all down in a unique tournament format on Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Then Thursdays at noon, take a look back at the rich history of our great sport with This Week in History. Relive title changes, births, deaths, and some of the best events of all time. Finally, join us for the latest in wrestling news, show results, and predictions Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. The Scumbags of Wrestling can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram, along with our audio versions on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're a proud part of the Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network and the Johners Podcast Network.
Okay, yeah, so we're back. I just want to plug a few things before we get out of here. Part of the Ontario Indie Podcast Network and the Johners Podcast Network. And so as part of that Straight Talk Wrestling with George Mackay, we'll have Alexia Nicole drop by for her third appearance on his show. She is currently in a competition to get on the cover of Maxim magazine, and she just recently had her 25th birthday, so it would be a great present for her if we go and vote for her daily to get on there. Last I checked, she was in first place, and want to keep her there, so make sure she remains there and makes it onto the cover of Maxim magazine. So you can check around for that. Barrie Wrestling is going to hold the Ontario Cup featuring 30 of the top stars across the province. Stay tuned for more details as they become available. As we saw with talked with Pretty Ricky, there are still restrictions here in Ontario for being able to gather and do anything, let alone empty arena shows, because there's really tight restrictions on how many people you can have. And even to try and do something like Go Hard Pro did at Christmas time, probably it's more people that need to be in the vicinity than we're allowing right now in Ontario. So we'll see what goes on there. Matthew Terry, you've seen him a few times on our Fantasy Warfare tournament, and he's organizing a podcast day in support of ALS in October. We are going to be a part of this and share details as they develop. There's going to be a meeting with different podcasters, including Pretty Ricky, Holden Albright, Scotty O'Shea, and others that are part of our network that are going to figure out what we want to do, how long it's going to go, and that's coming up May 19th. So we'll hammer out some details, and probably after that I can talk a little bit more about what's going on, but be on the lookout for a sort of podcast day happening in October. There's also a cross-branding podcast between Gilmy Talks and Straight Talk Wrestling. They sit down and talk about movies, Quentin Tarantino as a director, and much more. So check that out wherever you get your podcast from. Probably going to be on the Gilmy network. So check him out with that. Now for our own stuff, we have Pro Wrestling Tees at prowrestlingtees.com/Scumbags Wrestling. You see 4 designs here. 3 of them have our different logos, including the podcast and the original one, and a Raw's War tribute. And right now for the month of April and May, when you buy a t-shirt from us through our Pro Wrestling Tees store, the money is going to go to Jordito's recovery. He's a 7-year-old little guy from here in London that is recovering from cancer treatments and needs different equipment to help him recover. And we're going to just be a part of that by selling off these shirts and giving money towards that fund. Then, of course, the second shirt on the left-hand side is our Ontario Indie Comic cover, and that highlights a lot of the independent stars here in Ontario, designed by Nigel Lewis. And you can get those shirts for $22. They're a couple of dollars more than our regular shirts. And all that money is going to go to Steven's Wrestling Journey. And you'll be able to support his research for Caring Malformation. Steven has his own podcast and everything going on. I believe he just had Kevin Owens for about a half hour. So check out Steven's Wrestling Journey and support him on all he does. He's 9 years old, and he can mouth with the best of them. He's an awesome kid in that regard. It's a great family. Gives back to his community at all times, including toy drives. And Johnner's podcasting is involved with the Wrestle Circus. More details over on Johnner's podcasting network page. But if you go to Graps and buy some apparel at grapsapparel.com, use promo code Johners, and you can get 15% off as a part of that. We have our own Buy Me a Coffee. Support us on that, and if you like what we're doing, just throw us a tip, and you find details on the bottom left-hand side of our website at scumbagswrestling.ca. And give us a tip, let us know how that we're doing good and what content you like, what you don't like. We'll even have you a part of a show, because we always have a seat available to be part of anything that we do. And one last thing is right here, Cool Bets, our sponsor of the Scumbags Prediction League. So right there, you see the Scumbags Prediction League is a nice, fun thing that we're doing every pay-per-view, whether it's for NXT, WWE, Impact Wrestling, AEW, and we are collecting points just by sending in your prediction of who you think is going to win the matches. And throughout the year, we're going to have two different divisions. One is going from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. The other one starts just after SummerSlam, so I believe that's going to be All Out pay-per-view for AEW until about the Royal Rumble. And then the top point getters are all going to go into a finals for the month of February and March. Those participants are going to fight for this title right here, designed by our friends over at Undisputed Belts. It has our logo, champion, it has the cool bets, and our podcasting logo all there. You collect points, and we have different divisions. There's a fun side of things where you can win some of our t-shirts from Pro Wrestling Tees on select pay-per-views, and also you can be on the pro side, which is only $25. And on the pro side, you enter to win this championship belt. I'm just going to throw up that graphic again. And as you see, scoring is 10 points for a win, 5 points for a no contest, and 0 points for a loss. Details at scumbagswrestling.ca. And we thank everybody at Cool Bets for supporting us and all our shows. I think that's all I have to go with this week. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of the show. Steven, for coming back after some difficult times with family and work. Thank you for being here tonight. And our special guest, Pretty Ricky, and our special move to Wednesday for this week. We will see you tomorrow at noon as Jonesy and I do This Week in History, and we're going to look at, I believe it's April 23rd to the 29th, and the different activities that happen in the world of wrestling for that. And we will be back next week on Wednesday at 6 for Fantasy Warfare Tournament, looking at some of the guys who didn't win the big one in WWE post WCW shutdown. So in the last 20 years, we got 16 guys who did not win the title that probably should have, and we'll see who comes out on top of that one. And of course, we'll be back to our regular time for the Scumbags podcast Thursday nights at 8 p.m. So until next time, have a great week.